Thanks so much for taking the time out of your day to join us for this exciting webinar. My name is Tessa Davies. I'm the Commerce7's Growth and Event Marketing Manager. Just so you're aware, this is being recorded, so you don't have to take notes. We will be sending this recording to you afterwards. So don't fret, it's being recorded. You've got it. We encourage you to ask questions along the way in the Q&A box, as there will be time after the presentation to ask those questions. Commerce7 is not only lucky enough to have Avalara as an integration partner with our D2C winery software, but we're also lucky enough to be joined today by Kelly, Shannon, Casey, and from Avalara to educate us all. And I'm going to pass it off to Kelly to get started.
Tessa, thank you so much. And the entire Commerce7 team, we really appreciate it. And give me just a moment. I want to make sure everyone can see this wonderful presentation. All right. Are we good to go now?
Yeah, looks great.
Okay. So thanks again. I am Kelly Lingerfeld, Account Development Representative for the Avalara Beverage Alcohol team. And it is my pleasure to introduce you to my team members, Shannon Fahey and Casey Subak, along with Zach Campus, VP of Business Development for Commerce7. So we're going to just, here's my shot. And here's Zach. So Shannon is one of our tax research analysts, and she has a background in reporting returns prior to tax research that has given her such an in-depth knowledge of unique tax policies. So Shannon's expertise benefits our clients' confidence that they are compliant in every state. And next, oh, sorry, I'm having a little bit of issue today. Casey is our customer service account manager, one of them whose entire client base is in the beverage alcohol industry. And Casey has a background in licensing and customer service, which gives her the knowledge to be a wonderful customer advocate. So, who or what is Avalara? We are a cloud-based tax compliance solutions company providing software as a service solutions for small, mid-size, and enterprise organizations. And we serve over 30,000 customers globally. And we, last year alone, calculated over 3.1 million transactions. So I want to touch base on what matters to you as a beverage alcohol professional, and that is, how can we help you in the beverage alcohol industry? First of all, full service license and renewals. And what does that mean? We're not just going to spit out a form to you. We are going to do that work for you. Full service product registrations and renewals. We want your salespeople to feel confident when they're stepping in to talk to anyone, or you're getting ready for one of your club members, that product is in place and it's approved. And full service returns prep and files, sales and excise, as well as volume, tax calculations, alcohol specific taxes, including those that are very unique to certain municipalities, such as in Chicagoland with theirs. Shipping verification. Are we shipping it, making sure it's not a dry county, it's going to correct address, and all that's involved. And Shannon's going to go into that a little bit more detail. And age verification, as we all know, that is so important. So what are you going to learn today? We're going to talk about what's going on with direct-to-consumer in shipping states. What are the changes going on with fulfillment houses? What are their current challenges? State enforcement concerns. And Shannon's going to touch on some new things that are going on with some different states currently. Alcohol beverage volume increases for wine, where you're seeing that. Compliance requirements for beverage alcohol suppliers. Different tax types for wineries. And then of course, there's also what is considered wine, what is going on with beer, with dealing with hard seltzers, and then key steps for maintaining compliance. And of course, we really want to go into our Commerce7 integration with Avalara that we are so appreciative of. And then question and answers, please type them again into the chat box and we'll go over theirs at the end. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Shannon.
Thank you so much, Kelly. So today I'm going to mostly focus on direct-to-consumer shipping, wine, beer, spirits, and retailers. So direct-to-consumer shipping has been around a long time. Granholm passed in 2005, really opening up a lot of states for wine direct-to-consumer shipping specifically. So about 97% of the population of the United States currently has access to wine getting shipped directly to them. We have a couple holdouts. Utah and Mississippi specifically still don't allow any kind of direct-to-consumer shipping at all. They have a special order shipping option, which is a customer can place an order with a winery and have it shipped directly to a retailer, and then they can go pick up the wine at the retailer. But we don't really consider that direct-to-consumer because it's not going to your door. And then we have Arkansas, Delaware, and Rhode Island that utilize the federal provision for on-site shipping, meaning if somebody, say, from Arkansas is visiting your winery in Sonoma or in Oregon, if they are on the licensed premises, they can place an order there and have it shipped back to their home. But then once they're home, they cannot go ahead and place an order online. They have to be on the licensed premises. For distilleries and breweries, we're still seeing most of the country closed to direct-to-consumer shipping. Only about 11% of the population has access to spirits shipped direct-to-consumer, and about 17% of the population can get beer shipped directly to them. I mean, you can see there spirits in purple and beer in green. Wine retailer direct-to-consumer shipping has opened up a little bit more in recent years. So about 28% of the population has access to this. And this means that a licensed retailer, so they're operating state license, they're licensed as a retailer. In California, that would be a 1720 license. So you can then, those retailers can ship directly to consumers in those blue states. You just want to be careful of reciprocal states in this case. And I believe those are California and New Mexico. So, regardless of where you're doing business, it's important to make sure that it's allowed first and foremost, and then any compliance requirements after that are met as well. And so on the next slide, I'm going to go ahead and talk about fulfillment houses. This has been a huge topic in the industry, especially over the last few years with increased direct-to-consumer shipping. So we've seen states cracking down on any requirements they may or may not have for fulfillment houses. We've seen states adding fulfillment house licenses. So you can see Kansas, Tennessee, Alabama, and New Hampshire and North Dakota are all fulfillment house licensed states. So these are states where the fulfillment house themselves has to specifically get licensed. And a few of those are new states they've just recently added fulfillment house licenses to their laws. Montana, Illinois, Ohio, and Virginia all have some kind of either a reporting requirement or you have to just notify the ABC that you will be shipping through a fulfillment house and which fulfillment house that is. In some cases, the fulfillment house may have shipment reports due quarterly, annually, monthly. It depends on the state. And then we see Wisconsin and Louisiana are highlighted here as well. And that's because they have increased enforcement a bit or have made announcements about what they will and will not be allowing or are evaluating their requirements. So Louisiana specifically was issuing cease and desist letters last year for any businesses shipping directly to consumers via fulfillment house in Louisiana. So they have put a pause on issuing those cease and desist letters and are instead evaluating their statutes and their regulations, and are going to look at doing something similar to Illinois, where it is a notification system saying, hey, this winery is shipping through this fulfillment house to consumers in the state. And then the fulfillment house will most likely have some kind of shipment report requirement as well. We haven't seen those rules yet, but that's what the rumor is suggesting that is most likely going to happen. And then we have learned that Wisconsin is not, they're having some issues trying to figure out what fulfillment houses have been, or what permissions are allowed for fulfillment houses. And I'm going to go over a couple more states specifically on the next slide. So specifically, I want to talk about Tennessee, Kansas, and Alabama. These are all states that in the last year or so, we have seen create new fulfillment house licenses. Tennessee already allowed direct-to-consumer shipping, so it was a completely new law that added a completely new license for fulfillment houses, and it specifically licenses each individual warehouse within a fulfillment house company. So any warehouse that is being used to ship direct to consumer in the state of Tennessee would need to get licensed and have their own individual identification number with the Tennessee ABC. Excuse me. Kansas similarly created a new direct to consumer, a fulfillment house license as well. And Alabama created a fulfillment house license as a part of their new direct to consumer shipping laws. So they opened up for direct to consumer shipping, which was very exciting. On the same application as the direct to consumer shipping license, you can also apply for a fulfillment house license. Obviously, they're two separate licenses, but they utilize the same application. So as a direct to consumer shipper, if you are a winery that is shipping into any of these states or any state with any kind of fulfillment house requirement, what does this mean for you? As a state that licenses fulfillment houses, you want to check with your fulfillment houses to make sure that they are appropriately licensed. And it wouldn't hurt to obtain copies of those licenses. It's best to just cover your bases, make sure that you are compliant by ensuring they are compliant. And similarly, if the state requires some kind of notification or agreement or approval from the ABC, you want to work with your fulfillment house to make sure that this is what is happening. Excuse me. So on the next slide, we're going to step away from fulfillment houses a little bit and talk about some other enforcement concerns. As I mentioned with Louisiana, they were issuing cease and desist letters for people shipping through fulfillment houses. They're no longer doing that, and they're going to be evaluating their rules and regulations as they pertain to fulfillment houses. So keep an eye out on that. I'm sure we'll have a blog post, and we're going to be keeping a close eye on that. Next, we want to talk about age verification. I know Kelly mentioned that briefly before. Before I dive too much into South Dakota and Massachusetts, there's something really important with age verification to note. Every state has a minimum age rule associated with any kind of alcohol purchasing, shipment, delivery, etc. Customers, recipients, everybody needs to be over the age of 21. And regardless of how strictly the state is enforcing, this is something that you want to be making sure that everybody you're shipping to is at least 21 years of age. Everybody who is purchasing the alcohol is at least 21 years of age. Excuse me. So South Dakota comes to mind because last year they specifically issued guidance on how to verify age and what their requirements are. So most states say something along the lines of check ID or confirm their age or something like that. Obviously, checking ID is fine when you're on the premises, when they're visiting your winery or your tasting room or whatever it may be. If you're on the premises, it is far easier to check the ID than if it's an e-commerce transaction. So South Dakota said, you can do that. You can obtain a copy of the ID, or you can use a third-party age verification service, such as Avalara. We do have an age verification service that checks these boxes. So if you're not meeting those requirements, South Dakota says there's a very hefty fine per shipment that does not meet this requirement. It's not even just if you are illegally shipping to people under the age of 21, it's if they catch you not verifying the age. There is I think it's $1,000 per transaction penalty. So it's definitely worth your time to be utilizing a third-party verification service, or making sure you're compliant with their guidelines on those. Massachusetts doesn't have specific guidelines on how to check ID, but they did issue letters last year to a number of licensees in the state, excuse me, that were potentially shipping illegally to people under the age of 21. And they just wanted to remind people what their penalties are for sales to underage individuals. And so this can be hundreds or thousands of dollars in fine. It could be a suspension of your license for 6 months, a year, or 2 years. It depends on the number of infractions you have. So these two states we're going to call out specifically for their crackdown on age verification, but it's so important to be checking these things in all states, regardless of if they have specific guidance on how to do it. Next, we're going to talk about Tennessee a little bit. Earlier this year, they started cracking down on Secretary of State registration for direct-to-consumer shipping. This is a law that was a requirement that was on the books since 2015, but they did not start enforcing it, announcing it, etc., until this year. There was a bunch of pushback within the industry from lobbyists and other stakeholders, and they are changing that requirement. So it will no longer be required that direct-to-consumer shippers provide proof of registration with the Secretary of State. Excuse me. So that's the good news. That rule has not gone into effect yet. They are still working on those rules and regulations. They have not posted them or made them or put them in effect yet. So in the meantime, if you have a direct-to-consumer shipping license that is up for renewal, or you are considering applying for a direct-to-consumer shipper license in Tennessee, you will have to provide this proof of registration until that rule goes into effect. And we're hoping to see that in the next couple months. So it may be worth evaluating your options here. The cost to register with the Secretary of State in Tennessee is pretty substantial in some cases, depending on your business structure. So LLCs, or limited partnerships, things like that. It depends on the number of members, but it can be over $1,000, over $2,000 in some cases. Corporations are a little bit less, and general partnerships, I think, are only $20, but either way, there's still a fee associated, and there could be tax implications as well. Excuse me. So it's important to evaluate these options. It may be worth delaying getting the license, or letting your license lapse and stop shipping in Tennessee. It's obviously a business decision for you, but it is a good idea to at least evaluate your options. Finally, I want to talk a little bit about Missouri and Michigan. These are a couple of states that are cracking down on illegal direct-to-consumer shipping in their state. So this could be Missouri specifically. There's a special project with the ATC where they are investigating direct wine shippers to ensure that they are filing their annual return, that they're filing it online, because if you are mailing it, that does not count. It is not going to be counted as a filing. It has to be done through their online system. They're also cracking down on volume limits. Volume limits are something that we track and keep, excuse me, keep tabs on through our Avalara shipping verification product. But if you're not utilizing that, you want to be making sure you're within your annual or monthly, or even some cases per transaction volume limit. So Missouri is really cracking down on that. So something to pay attention to. Excuse me. Michigan is also working on some investigations right now. They are working with their attorney general to crack down on illegal shipping. So there were some wineries that were shipping without a license or to underage individuals or not reporting or whatever it may be. They're making sure that everybody shipping in their state is doing so legally. So if you're shipping to any of these states and all states that you are shipping to, it's important to make sure that you are compliant. On the next slide, we're going to talk about alcohol by volume increases in the law. Excuse me, I'm just going to get a little water. So earlier this year, both Kansas and Oregon updated their table wine tax classification to align with federal law. So what does this mean? It means that the threshold, the alcohol by volume threshold for table wine has now gone up to 16% from what it was 14% previously in both of these states. Kansas, this has not gone into effect yet. It goes into effect on the 1st of January for 2023. And then for Oregon, this went into effect January 1st of this year. And so we've already seen the return change in Oregon where the lower tax rate for wine applies to wine up to 16% and the higher tax rate for anything over that. I imagine it will be pretty similar in Kansas. We just don't have that return yet. South Carolina, they did not necessarily change the tax classification, but what they did was they increased the alcohol content of wine that is allowed to be shipped directly to consumers in South Carolina. So now, if you are a winery shipping directly to consumers in South Carolina, you can ship up to wine that is up to 16.5% alcohol by volume. And this went into effect in May of last year. A couple other states have alcohol content caps as well. These are all important things to consider when you are shipping to any state. It's important to evaluate those requirements. Next, we're going to talk about the Colorado retail delivery fee. So this has been the talk of the town, if you will, or the talk of Colorado anyway. So it's a new fee. They call it the retail delivery fee, and it went into effect July 1st of this year, so just a few days ago. And what it is it is a fee of 27 cents for every transaction of tangible goods that is delivered to a Colorado resident by motor vehicle, which is most goods, right? Most everything that is going to be shipped to an individual's doorstep or their office or wherever is going to be delivered by motor vehicle. This includes shipments via common carrier motor vehicle. So FedEx and UPS are included in this as well. This is on tangible goods, taxable tangible goods. So if you're shipping non-taxable goods, the retail fee does not apply. But if those non-taxable goods are included in a transaction with taxable goods, the fee will apply. It's important to note that it applies if you are required to register for sales tax. The fee you are going to need to get registered for this retail delivery fee as well. It applies if you have any kind of nexus, whether it's physical nexus or economic nexus. If you're registered for sales tax or you're obligated to be registered for sales tax, you're also obligated to register for this retail delivery fee. The good news is if you are already registered for sales tax, the Colorado Department of Revenue will have automatically registered you for this retail delivery fee account. So there's not an additional application, there's not an additional license or permit, there's not even an additional registration fee. The Colorado Department of Revenue will have already registered you for this if you were already registered for sales tax. Now, if you don't meet the nexus requirements in Colorado, you don't necessarily need to register for this. It's something to evaluate with your business and take a look at all of that and work with the Department of Revenue on that. There is a separate return for this. So it is return DR 1786, and it is due in conjunction with the sales tax return. So whatever your filing frequency is for sales tax, monthly, quarterly, annually, that's going to be the same filing frequency with which you file this retail delivery fee return. Additional good news about this return is it is a statewide return. So Colorado has a home rule state for sales tax, meaning individual jurisdictions can tax independently of the state. They can have independent returns. And we've seen that, especially with a number of the smaller jurisdictions. So this return covers the whole state, regardless of the home rule there. So that's the good news. It is also important to note that this fee, similar to sales tax, needs to be identified and listed separately on all invoices and receipts. So it'll be its own individual line item, separate from sales tax, separate from pricing. It's its own line. Also worth noting, it is per transaction. So it is not necessarily per shipment, it is, or per product, it is per transaction. So if a winery, or if somebody places an order with your winery for 12 bottles, but it's one order, it's one fee. If they place 2 orders, each for 6 bottles, that's 2 fees. Excuse me. Even if one order is made in multiple deliveries, it's still just one fee because it was one transaction, it was one order. So these are all important to consider. And if you are already a customer of Avalara, you are covered, you are good to go. We take care of this for you. So if you have any questions on that though, please feel free to reach out. And finally, I want to talk a little bit about Alaska. We have had another change, and it's an interesting one. So previously, and also right now, Alaska does not regulate direct-to-consumer shipments coming from outside of the state. So that means wineries, breweries, distilleries can kind of ship as much as they want, as long as they're not shipping to dry areas. And there's no tax or license or anything like that. It is kind of a free-for-all at the moment. Senate Bill 9 was recently signed, however, and it goes into effect January 1st of 2024. So up until January 1st, if you are already shipping to Alaska, up until January 1st of 2024, not next year, the year after, if you are shipping to Alaska, you can continue to do so just as you have been. So you can continue without a license. After January 1st of 2024, you must have the manufacturer direct shipper license. Wineries, breweries, and distilleries can get this license for $200. And it is specific to manufacturers. So retailers are not included in this license. But wineries, breweries, and distilleries are all eligible with some limitations. It's important to note they'll start accepting applications on September 1st of next year, but they will not issue licenses until January 1st of 2024. And this is, so even if you have applied for a license, if you can continue to ship until January 1st of 2024. It is subject to, these shipments will be subject to alcoholic beverage tax. It just depends on the type of alcohol what the rate will be. They're going to want to know the total gallons sold. They're going to want to know customer information. So address, name, all of that good stuff, which is pretty standard. And the gallonage of each kind of beverage. Excuse me. So if you're going to apply for this license and continue to ship in Alaska after January 1st of 2024, there will be taxes associated with those shipments. There was no mention of sales tax in Senate Bill 9. So we're still waiting to see how the Department of Revenue and home rule jurisdictions, because Alaska, like Colorado, is a home rule state. We're waiting to see how the Department of Revenue and these local jurisdictions react to this law and how sales tax will play a factor. We're just not sure yet. Currently, Alaska does have nexus laws. So it's 200 transactions, $100,000 in gross sales for a year. Excuse me. And so we're waiting to see if nexus is going to play a factor for sales tax as well. So keep an eye out for blog posts. This is something that will be addressed in AvaTax as well. It's important to note that Alaska is very unique in the way it handles dry areas. So more than 75 communities have completely banned possession, sale, any kind of possession of alcohol. So obviously you can't ship alcohol to those local jurisdictions. There are also damp communities in Alaska. And so what this means is only certain types of alcohol can be possessed or purchased. And in some cases that means maybe only in restaurants. So you're just going to want to double check, make sure that the communities that you're shipping to allow shipping of alcohol, whether it be wine, beer, or spirits, whatever you're shipping, it's important to double check. They also mention age verification in this law. So we had mentioned that with South Dakota. There's a third-party age verification guideline. They have this as well for Alaska. So again, Avalara age shipping verification would check this box. And finally, there are volume limits both for shipping and annual production volume limits. So for distilled spirits, you can only ship up to 1.5 liters per purchaser per transaction, and up to 4.5 liters of spirits to a purchaser in a year. For wine, it's 18 liters per transaction and 108 liters of wine per person per year, which is a pretty standard volume limit we see in a lot of states. For brewed beverages, so malt, beer, whatever it may be, it's 288 ounces per transaction and up to 13.5 gallons per purchaser per year. Finally, for the annual production volume, there is no cap for wine. So wineries of any size can get this license. However, breweries that produce more than 300,000 barrels annually are not eligible for the manufacturer direct shipper license. And distilleries that produce more than 50,000 proof gallons per year are also not eligible for this license. So these are all considerations if you're shipping to Alaska or planning on shipping to Alaska after January 1st of 2024. Keep an eye on these and keep an eye on any blog posts we may have. And now I'm going to pass it over to Casey.
Thanks, Shannon. Hi, everyone. As Kelly mentioned, I am Casey. I'm a client account manager with Avalara. Gonna kind of talk about, Shannon went into a lot of detail about so much great, like ever-changing regulations. The compliance, there's a lot. There's always something changing. We just want to make sure, your business is required to register with the TTB, with the Department of Revenue, with the ABC. Really important to start there and then take it a step further in state regulations, licensing. Kelly, can you go to the next screen, please? Perfect. So, each state requires licensing. Avalara handles direct to consumer licenses, wholesale licenses. We have a proprietary software. Wow, that was a mouthful. Proprietary software that helps manage this and makes it easy for you all on, DTC wholesale license permits. It auto generates new licenses. We can assist you in getting into new jurisdictions. We want to help make it as easy as possible for you all. We also do returns. We can help with direct to consumer. Kelly, next screen, please. Thank you. We can help with direct to consumer. Returns are very detailed. We want to make it as painless as possible. And we do direct to consumer, sales use, excise filings. We've, in our software, we've got the visibility to see what's going on, how we file it, how much we've paid. So just an added benefit for the full visibility. And then there's several taxes to be aware of. There's a lot of states that require pass-through tax, sales tax, excise tax, and markup tax. Really important to have that multi-tax, understand the multi-tax and see how you calculate your sales use markup tax. In the next slide, we're going to show you kind of a Kentucky, how the breakdown of a Kentucky receipt would look like, and on a state that is required to pass through to the tax. So you'll see, Kentucky, even though it's a direct to consumer receipt, there's still that excise tax owed by the direct shipper. And then there's that Kentucky wholesale equivalent tax. So really important to have these breakdowns in understanding, multi-tax. Not every state requires this, but in the states that do require it, Avalara has a product called Avalara for AvaTax for beverage alcohol, and it just helps you understand that multi-tax, calculates your sales use and tax. All right. Oh, and as I mentioned, there we go, AvaTax for beverage alcohol. So it just helps, we're fully integrated with Commerce7. We help calculate sales tax jurisdictions. We have real-time calculations of the sales and use markup taxes on the states that do require these pass-through taxes. And then, as Shannon mentioned, we have our age verification that constantly, goes to license requirements, volume requirements, dry areas, age check. It's really important to call out the difference between age check and age verification. So, affirmation versus verification. Avalara shipping verification monitors age check. We have an additional product that is age verification. So really important, for those states that do require that third-party service, South Dakota, Massachusetts, and any other states that come up, do they require age verification? All right. Perfect. Then next screen, please.
Oh, it should be up there.
All right. Okay, well, I'll just, not coming, no worries. Okay, well, want to talk about, it was just a fun little slide that showed how Commerce7 is integrated with,
Oh, sorry.
no worries.
I don't know why. I'm sorry.
No worries, we'll roll with it. So Commerce7, we are partnered with Commerce7. We integrate connectors. I'll pass it to Zach to kind of do a demo on this integration.
Cool. Yeah, I'll walk through the integration here. So it's really easy to set up. Of course, you need a Commerce7 account and you need an Avalara account. So if you have both those accounts, really easy to set up. Basically, in your Commerce7 account, that's going to look something like this. You would just go into the apps and extensions, and under extensions, you're going to see the Avalara extension here, right here. And so I can see I've got this installed right now. So what you would do is you would just click on this, and there'd be a button to set this up. And you can walk through the settings as you set it up. But basically, you just input, some of your information, what the tax mode you want is, freight tax codes, things like that. If you're going to use their taxes, if you're going to use their compliance checks. So really easy to set this up. You can set this up in a minute, no problem. Once this is set up, if you have that kind of account with Avalara, what's going to happen is when you create an order, when an order is made, you're going to have, the Avalara taxes used for that order, right? The destination-based taxes. Also going to get a real-time compliance check on the order, right? So everything that the Avalara team was talking about in terms of compliance, dry states, quantity limits, age verification, things like that, that's all going to be checked on the order. And when the order's made, if everything's all good according to Avalara, then the order is going to be compliant. It's going to be created. You don't have to worry about anything there, right? If Avalara does the compliance check and the order is not compliant, it's going to look something like this. The order instead is going to be quarantined, right? And so you can filter your orders to find all the quarantine orders. And these are orders where there's a compliance issue here, right? The payment's not captured because this order is not compliant. So in the order, there's a little compliance tab here. And here you can actually see what's going on. You can see why the order was not compliant. So I can see on this order I had way back here, this was not compliant because the volume limit was exceeded. And it lets me know in North Carolina, this is the volume limit on a monthly basis for a customer. And that I tried to ship them above the volume limit there, right? So Avalara got in front here, quarantine the order, lets me know the issue, and I can kind of act accordingly. There's a ton of different quarantine reasons that would be shown here for different scenarios related to the destination, the age, the quantity, right? Things like that. From this point, what you can do if you want, you can adjust the order and you can also retry compliance. You can retry the compliance, but ignore the address. You can force the compliance, or you can just say there's no compliance required on this order. You're just going to kind of opt out there. So really easy to use. It's kind of a set and forget, right? You set it up, it runs in the background, and then orders that are not compliant, they're going to be flagged, and you can come in here and decide how you want to deal with those. So at that point, I think that's it in terms of the presentation, and we're going to move on to a bit of Q&A here. So if you have any questions, definitely put them in the Q&A box there.
Yeah, we have one here from John Foster. He says, does Avalara only handle DTC shipments, or can wholesale be added as well?
Yeah, I could take that one. Yeah, so Avalara handles wholesale shipments for wine, beer, and spirits. And then we handle direct to consumer for wine.
Okay, great.
Our shipping verification product, though, does handle direct to consumer for beer and spirits as well. So that's an important consideration, but our full services, our licensing and product registration and things like that, you see was correct.
Does anyone else have any questions for either Commerce7 or Avalara? Okay, how can people get a hold of you guys in case they have any follow-up questions?
Sure, give me just a second, and I am going to share again and give some contact information for you all. We so appreciate, again, Commerce7, you folks, Tessa, Zach, hosting us today. There is my direct line. Usually I am the first person that you will speak to at Avalara. I will put you in contact with one of our customer account managers if you're already dealing with Avalara, or one of our sales executives. But we're just so appreciative, and we look forward to just being in contact with everyone.
Thank you so much, and thank you to the team at Avalara and for all of you for tuning in. Like I said, we will be following up with the recording of this, and we'll also include a link to our next upcoming partner webinar. It'll be with Outshinery, and it'll be about your winery imagery, and that one's happening on August 11th. So we'll talk to you soon, and have a great day, everyone. Bye.